And that was a very tragic story that he had to, and then I was known as the Nantucket Shark in the newspapers, and I threw him out on the streets, and Richie got a bad rep and everything. But the fact of the matter is that I had to get Rivers before Sonny left over to my house, because he is very secretive, as we all know, and he's very private. And the last thing that he could believe was that we wanted to offer him a job to come across the street. That's Benedict Arnold. And he's one of the most loyal guys you'll ever see. And it really took him back. I had to meet him secretly over here and there and most contested. So I finally said, look, just come over to my house. So he come over to my house, and he came over for what, a week?
Yep.
10 days, something like that. Hemmed and hawed, and finally I said, you know, this approach is all wrong. Totally wrong, Madison. You have him bring Maureen home. So Maureen came over, met Diane, my wife. We sat out on the porch, had some wine. I gave him a martini, a bunch of cigars, let him, you know, listen to the conversation. And so I ran down the whole deal with Maureen and what it would mean for him to do this, not in a negative way or disloyal way, but what a positive thing to follow up. You know, Sonny Joe White's and Kiss was really rolling, and that Matt Siegel was, you know, he was just a real strong anchor, and his potential, we really felt, hadn't been reached in the nearest, because he wasn't focused at that point in time. Wasn't 8 balls. It was just that it just wasn't that he didn't have, he needed a strong leader, and Steve was that, quiet, but strong in every way. And he would focus, and focus, and focus, and focus. So Maureen and I kind of huddled one night. They asked him over, and Steve was late coming over. And I said, Maureen, you got to get to the positive of this. And she said, I totally agree. This is the best career move we can make. It's the best move for our family because, I don't know if Alan Chartrand's here?
He's coming.
The Chartrands and it had private investors, they owned that, right? And they were a family, and their goal probably was known, was to build a radio station to sell it. So we weren't going to sell, and he knew that how our whole organization rolled, and he liked that. Maureen loved it. So the fact of the matter is that Maureen really helped, and if it wasn't for her, Steve probably would have, you know, been reluctant to make that move. And I thank you and everybody at Kiss 1 Week in history of Kiss really thanks you on behalf of Steve for making that happen, because it changed all of our careers. Mine, Bev's, Lisa Fell's, and Siegel's.
Mine.
Yours.
I didn't have one anymore.
Yours, and maybe a career. This guy over here, he, unbelievable that you're right, you were really lucky. We said, Cadillac, Jack, what the hell are you doing, really? But the fact of the matter is that we couldn't hire him because he had to, where did you go hide while you were feeding all the liquor store?
He at the Stop and Shop parking lot, so I could get
Yeah,
the
he'd have to go meet him and do all this kind of stuff, and it was nuts for 6 months. So he was doing all the legwork until we could hire him. But it really did change things, and it was a shot heard around the world, and it was very difficult for him to, as he thought, be a Benedict Arnold. And then he proceeded to turn around and kick Chandler's ass. And he did, much to the sales department, Lisa Fell and Mary Ellen and Bobby Price and everybody else, because they'd walk in my office and say, would you please consult Mr. Rivers? He's burning these records. He's playing them all the time. And it's burned. The burn factor is killing us, and our clients are calling and all this kind of stuff. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll go talk to him. So I went and talked to Steve, and just like Ivy said, Steve said, oh, fine. I said, could you feather the music a little bit? He said, sure. I think he burned it hard. I swear to God. So I haven't seen Mikey, okay, Steve Marine's son, in a long time. Last time I saw him when he was 5 years old. You want to come on up here, Mikey? You want to tell the story, or should I? You want to tell the story? Oh, excuse me. Do I look that old? You were just a little fart, so don't be, you were just a little fart.
Don't you tell him, then I'll wait.
No, okay, but I will preface this by saying, I and most people, and Bev Tilden was there to witness this at Steve's home in Phoenix, new home that they just bought. We have never seen Steve Rivers, you know, his laugh, that deep laugh, roar constantly with tears in his eyes with laughter all day, right?
Yeah.
We've never seen anything like it. So Mikey, would you like to tell the story of the pool?
Yeah. So I was about 7 or 8, and I had just met all of my dad's friends, and they were over drinking, smoking cigars. And, well, I was in the pool, and mostly naked, of course, and I was yelling at all of my dad's friends, and I would not call him his real name, because I did not really know it, and I kept calling him George Madison. And so I went and got my brand new Super Soaker, and I was squirting him while he was sitting down smoking a cigar, and I'm very certain the boiling point after 45 minutes of him just getting drenched was I put out his cigar with the Super Soaker, and he just stood up, came to the edge of the pool, and just did a belly flop right in, completely closed. And I got my other Super Soaker and gave it to him, and I said, "You will rue the day you were born, George Madison."
I think that was precisely the way it was. But I got to tell you something, Steve, he fell off his chair, and he would tell the story. I don't know. I'm sure he told it forever. But he said, "You will rue the day." So Steve saw that this kid had balls, man. That was a great story. I was fortunate enough, thanks, Mikey.
No problem, George.
I was fortunate enough to see Steve about a year ago down in the home that he was in. And I was down there, and I found out where he was. I was visiting my brother who was down there, and actually half the trip was planned to see Steve. I didn't see him in a long time. A lot of emails going around, a lot of chatter. And so I went over to the home that he was in. And it was great to see him. And after, I don't know how many strokes he had, but he's in this home, and he felt very uncomfortable in this home. And he said, "You know, John, I would really like to go outside," so we go outside. And honestly, he had a little speech impediments, a little difficulty speaking, but I will swear that there are very few in this room that he did not ask about it. He said, "Hey, how's everybody in Boston? How's Maddie? You know, how are all the guys doing?" You know, he asked about Dan. He always asks about Cadillac and Ivy and people in Boston. Always asked about Dee. You know, so and occasionally he'd even bring up Bert Hinckley, David Lebo, but he really wanted to know. Yeah, Steve Rivers and Bert Hinckley.
Lebo's standing on a box in this picture. No way he's that tall.
But I must have sat there all afternoon because he wanted to know as much about all of you as he could possibly hear. And during that time, Angel came over to visit, right, his daughter. And I just thanked her on behalf of everybody in this room for taking care of me, because she lived down there. I think she lived, well, no, about
a couple blocks.
Not even a mile.
Not even a mile. And so as much as everybody else wanted to try and get down there and help, you know, Katie and Bridget and Mikey and Maureen, of course, it was very difficult because they're all on the West Coast. So she, you know, this also is a thank you and tribute to Angel for what she did down there for Steve. And his thoughts were always with you, and they were always in radio. And he said, "Has anything changed?" And I said, "God knows what's changed in radio. You know, I don't have a very good vision of that from Nantucket." But I said, "And is there anything that I can get for you?" And he said, "Yeah, look, would you do me a favor?" He said, "Would you give me a couple of cigars?" I said, "Rip, I don't think that in this home, they want you to have a cigar. And they said, where the hell would you have a cigar? You blow the place up inside. You've got oxygen tanks, you've got all this shit. I said, Rip, come on, man. He goes, Johnny, come on. You can give me a couple of cigs. I said, where are you going to smoke them? He says, watch. So he says, help me into the wheelchair. I get him in a wheelchair. He says, follow me. And I follow him onto a patio. And he says, I'm going to smoke them right here. Okay? I said, okay, Rip, that's something. You know, what are they going to do? He goes, I don't give a shit what they do. I said, okay, Rip, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go out this afternoon. I'll bring them back tomorrow. I'll give you a couple of cigs. Okay? But you got to send me an email. Tell me if you liked them or not. And I'll send you some more if you get away with them. So he goes, okay, great, you're the best, all that kind of stuff. I get an email in 48 hours. They were delicious, and I need more. I said, holy shit. But it was great to see him, and he was doing very well. And you should know that he just wanted to know everything about all of you. Tommy Pullman, he specifically asked about you as well. You should know that. So it was a big deal. And I missed him a lot. And I brought some of these are his favorite cigars that anybody is welcome to grab them. And one final thing, I want to bring up Maureen, but you have to know that nobody on this earth has adored a person so deeply and more than this lady. I mean, any of us as husbands should be, our wife should be so lucky to be adored like that by us. And it didn't matter where you were, what you were doing, adored the kids, and he really loved and adored Maureen for everything she did, even though they were separated. He never stopped loving her. Well, we'll put Mikey on. He was going to say something.
Yeah.
Big shot.
So everyone here knew my dad as Steve, Riv, I knew my dad as dad, And so I have completely different memories of him than everyone else here. So I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and just really saying something about him that I didn't know. He was a great man. He raised me right. But everyone says he has integrity. I completely agree with that. He taught me how to resolve the situation without being an asshole. He taught me how to sit there and listen to people and then actually say what they wanted to hear rather than say what I wanted to say. And he was fucking good at that. See, my memories of my dad are like when I was driving down to California with him from our house up in Seattle to LA, and we had a 4-day trip, and he had 2 cases of cigars, and I had a quart in the backseat of his Land Rover, and I was watching movies, and he would smoke a cigar, and then I'd be like, Dad, can I try it? He'd be like, don't tell your mother. Of course my dad's gonna let me try a freaking cigar. I mean, it's my dad. It's him. I mean, I never really saw him without a cigar around. Within arm's reach at all times. And then, we got down to California, and I really didn't know what my dad did at all. And I remember I was on a film shoot because I was an actor, and it was just a student film, nothing really big at all, but we were really close in Culver City to K-Rock. And so my mom was like, let's go see your dad. And I was like, okay. So we took a couple of the kids who were working with me, and we got to go to K-Rock. And I didn't think anything of it, but the kids did. They're like, this is the coolest thing in the world. This is awesome. And I was like, what is? I'm a radio station. Isn't that big? Like, I'm here. My dad's right there. It's like, that's my dad. And they were just like, oh my God, that's this guy, and he's that guy, he's Stryker, oh my God. And so I never really knew it was such a big deal that my dad was my dad. And so hearing each and every one of these stories is just really monumental to me. So thank you.
Even a month before Steve passed, he
he had quite a bit of dementia, but the things he always remembered were Mikey in the back seat of that car popping up and singing the Kit Kat commercial song. And I talked to Steve almost every day for the last several years, and he'd always say, remember that time that Mikey popped up in the back seat? I'd say, yeah. I just heard the story the day before, but told him over and over again. Bridget falling out of trees at Kelly's house. And he said, I think you should take her to the hospital. I thought, she just fell out of a tree. She's fine. He goes, I really think you should take her. She looks like she's in pain. I'm like, oh my God, okay. Take her. She's broken her arm, her collarbone. She has mono and something else. And he's going, some mother you are. We weren't living together, but we were working together in Los Angeles, and started to see him kind of walking into work, and we worked really closely together, and we were programming radio stations for chains of stores and restaurants, and it was really fun. And he was magnificent. But I started to see him kind of lose his balance a little bit, and made a couple of appointments for him to go see some doctors, and they said, well, you just have an inner ear thing. And one day he didn't come to work, which was rare, and I had Richie calling, where is he, what's going on, and I was trying to cover for him, and I called Bridget and I said, you need to get over to see what's wrong with your dad, I can't get a hold of him. And she made them let her in. They wouldn't let her into his apartment.
She
But
came
she
to my school and got my
came to
key.
school, got the key from Mikey, went back, got herself in, called me, and she said he's on the floor. So we called 911, got him to the hospital in time. They said if he had been maybe an hour late, he wouldn't have made it. Thanks to Bridget for getting right on it. And that was, when he was there, the doctors were saying, look at all these medications you're on. Are you trying to kill yourself? And I was just stunned. And I said, something's wrong. Well, yeah, he's drunk. I go, he's not drunk. And I finally just said, you get the fuck out of here and you get me a neurologist right now. There's something wrong. And they said, Mrs. Belcher, you're going to have to calm down a little bit. And it just so happened there was a neurologist right in the room next door. And he heard me and he came in. And he diagnosed him with an MRI within an hour, and he said, this man has had 8 strokes already. And this one yesterday was a big one. And so that's why the balance was off for a year. And, he was slurring words, and people thought he'd been drinking, but he didn't. So I wanted to talk just briefly about strokes, because that's what really killed him. And we have set up a Steve Rivers Memorial Fund with the National Stroke Association. And I just want you to know that a stroke occurs when the blood supply to part of the brain is suddenly interrupted, and usually by high blood pressure. And brain cells start to die. And that's why dementia is such a part of people that have strokes. The symptoms are sudden numbness, weakness, especially on one side of the body, confusion, trouble speaking, people can't understand your speech, all these things that were happening to him, and we didn't know it. But we were there with him every day, working with him, and homeschooling the kids, so they were in the conference room, and we were all around him, but we didn't understand it. And, he was kind of reluctant to do physical therapy, which would have helped him. So, he went to Seattle, programmed up there for a while, and had more strokes, and we got him back down to my house in Burbank, and Bridget came over and must have stayed up for 2 days doing all this research on strokes, and what could she do to help Dad? And she was sitting there with him one morning when I was on the air, and she's talking to him, and she saw the signs that she had read about the night before happening. And she called 911 and got him to the hospital, and he had had another stroke, a big one, and the doctor told her that had she not got him there within 5 minutes, he would have died. So she saved his life about 4 years ago, twice. Eventually, we'd been divorced for a long time, and I couldn't take care of him anymore. So moved him down into Florida, where he was at several different kind of assisted living places, and his daughter and family took good care of him, and my kids flew down there a lot. But he kept saying in February, "I'll see you in March." He kept saying to Bridget, "I'll see you in March." And he'd say to me, "I really want you to come down in March." And I said, "Wow, you know, trying to make some money here so we can get all down there, and you know, I'll do my best." He goes, "No, I'm going to see you in March." And then March 6th, he passed away. And we all flew down there, and I think he knew it. He knew he needed to see us, and he knew it was going to go. And when we saw him, we were so happy that he'd been released from this body and this mind that was such a genius, and he was so full of life. And in the last couple of years of his life, he wasn't. He was very, very unhappy and confused. And so we're glad that he's released and he's up there. And he did some amazing things for me, especially after we were divorced. We stayed really good friends, and I set up the Steve Rivers Memorial Fund, and I hope that you guys will, it's on the bottom of these cards, because the website is on the bottom of those cards, so please take them home with you, put them on your desk, and if you can donate something, it would be great. Steve and I had talked about it a lot over the last couple of years, and it's something that he would really want. He had written notes that he would like, if it was necessary, people to do research on him and find out, you know, how maybe once he was gone, he could help other people. So I really appreciate this, Deb. Thank you so much. And thank everybody for your support.
Beautiful.
First of all, let's hear it for Bev. She brought all- Thank you for the party plan, but you did a great job then. Anybody else want to have a comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm artsy.
I know,
You got it. Steve affected a lot of people, and it's like, it's a wonderful life, and you affect a lot of people, but Steve totally affected my life, and I'm so appreciative, and I was gonna tell you separately, Maureen, but I can just tell you now. One other person affected my life. When I got out of college, Joan Rivers used to use my jokes on The Tonight Show when she was hosting The Tonight Show, and I got all excited, and I moved out to LA, and I had a great life out there, and I worked for Dick Clark Productions for a long time. In fact, I'm going to a memorial for Dick in July. And that was great. And then I came back after a few years for a little period because of my family problems, and there was some deaths in my family. And I needed to get a job. So there wasn't a lot of TV happening. So Steve hired me to work for Matt Siegel. And of course, once you work for Matt, you never want to leave. I mean, you wouldn't want to leave that job. It was fantastic. So I ended up staying there for a few years. But while I was there, I was booking some guests for Matt. He had never had, I don't think he ever had this kind of thing. Matt's so good with real people, as we all know. And so I was booking like strange people. I found out of the Inquirer, like a fish jumps out of the water and knocks a woman unconscious in a boat off Florida. And some guys in an outhouse and a bear pulls them out and his underwear and drags them through the woods. So I'd get these people on the air and Matt would be talking to them. And so Steve thought that was kind of different, I guess. And so he calls me in his office and he starts hooking me up with these small little cities around the country, these radio stations, I mean, and little towns I never even heard of. Norfolk, Virginia, I mean, I've heard of it, but I mean, who knows what the hell's going on there, and Charlottesville and all that. And they start paying me like $200 or whatever a month for the same guest that I'm booking for Matt Siegel. And so he gets me in there and he hooks me up, and at the time that was cool because it added up. And so after a while, I worked for Matt for a few years, and that was fun and fascinating, but I had to move on for various reasons. And so I went on to New York and worked and wrote for who the hell is it? Rosie O'Donnell for a few years. Got back into TV. But after she went off the air, I'm saying, what am I going to do now? I could be, you know, I have to work at a Home Depot. What am I going to do? And so I thought back on how Steve had set me up with these little stations and how hard it is to book these little strange guests that are really kind of amusing. And so I started up a whole business. So Steve really started me. You know, Joan Rivers did it first when I did that fun kind, but he got me into the real part of my life where I had to get real and find a real job, and he's responsible for that. I thought back on Steve and how he set me up with those stations, and so then I started my own business, and that's what I do today, and I live in Connecticut. So and Jake helped me as well, and I thanked her earlier, but Steve gave me the idea, and so my family should really be happier than I am, because I could be having a fun life writing for TV again, but they're getting the paychecks and all that, my wife and my 3 kids living in Darien. So it's just amazing how one person, like I said, I'd be working in Home Depot or whatever if it weren't for him. I started this whole business for him. It's just amazing. And I also think fondly of Steve, because he's the shorter, rotund Pete to get kissed that didn't fire me.
Hey,
So, thank you very much.
What did you call that? Working for Matt was fun and what?
Fascinating.
Fascinating. I'll bet it was. Just so you know, Alan, we told stories about you before you came in, so it's okay.
Nice to see
Check
you.
out
With
that.
all due respect.
Anybody else want to say anything?
I'm gonna ask Mikey if he wants a job. Your program?
I guarantee I can get into it.
I'm sure.
Can you say
Just play the hits.
There you go, yeah.
Gotta add A to
Hey,
it.
hey.
I would just like to close in saying that the emotion of radio is really special. And I was with Mr. DeCastro for the last 2 days. He came down to the Cape, we visited Beth, and tried to play golf at Fort Ray. We played with Mr. O'Keefe today, thank you, Kenny. But he said last night, he says, you know, I got something I want to play for you. And he played this KTU thing. And it was so amazing. And Deacon said, you know, when I first heard this, I cried. He was serious. We heard it last night, and it was tough. Because that was Steve Rivers. And that's the emotion of radio. And that's the emotion that we all, passion that we all have for radio. And love for it, and he loved it more than any of us. He was king. Long live the king.
One of these, I think it'll be great for kids. Just one little remembrance you have of something you did with Steve at work, because it's going to help them get to know why we love them and why we're here tonight. So, I
Nice job,
appreciate
Deb.
it. Yeah.